Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. Join hosts Dan Melnick and Qasim Masood as they explore big ideas, limitless possibilities, and engage with visionaries, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders who dare to dream big, get inspired, motivated, and find practical tips for personal growth. Think big, dream bigger, and ignite your potential.
Awesome. All right. Welcome to Think Big with Dan and Qasim. I'm absolutely filling in for Qasim today. And our guest today is Rohit. So Rohit, if you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, tell us where you live and what you do for a living.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, thanks, Dan. Thanks for having me, and thanks, Elaine, for being here as well. Maybe just a quick little background on myself. I currently live in New York, born and raised in Michigan. And I'm the CEO and co-founder of Zamp. Zamp is this white glove sales tax solution that we've built in the market with ex-TaxJar, ex-Avalara operators, as well as other prior state auditors in the space. And ultimately, the kind of solution that we're building is just a way for us to align with what customers are really looking for in the market today. So that's a little bit about what I do, and you know who I am, but happy to kind of jump in wherever.
Yeah. So how did you get the idea for Zamp?
Yeah. So actually, maybe I should have given a little bit more context on my background. So I've been an investor for the last 7 years or so in the e-commerce and SaaS spaces. And what I've seen is, specifically in that space, a lot of the companies that we had invested in, a lot of the companies that we were talking to, they consistently had an issue with sales tax. And you kind of ask, like, how did that even come up? That's not a normal topic of conversation, right? And I think it's because when you invest in companies, whether it's at the private equity level, which I've done all the way to growth to early stage venture, a lot of these companies, they'll give you, company updates. So they'll tell you, like, hey, listen, this is how our company's doing today, but this is kind of what we need today from you. And a lot of those asks from companies would be around, at some point or another, it would be around sales tax. It would be like, hey, the existing solutions that we're looking at, they're not really good enough. They're expensive. They're clunky. They're old. Their pricing model doesn't align with what we're looking for. It seems like an enterprise solution. And it was kind of like this, they don't have good support, et cetera, right? And it was like, okay, holy cow, like our portfolio companies, especially as I got into the early stage venture side, when I was seeing more and more deals, more investments, they kind of had this same problem. And over time, it's kind of pattern recognition at a point. You really want to be able to add values to the companies that you invest in. And it's not always easy because, especially at the early stage venture side, you're investing in so many companies and you only have 24 hours in a day. So one of the things I like to do is it's like, okay, let's see where commonality is in a specific problem. And that problem was around sales tax. And you saw this with e-commerce businesses that we'd invested in, all the way from just businesses getting started, call it like few $1,000s a month, all the way to businesses that are doing tens of millions a month. Kind of spanned the bandwidth. And then you also saw it with like SaaS businesses. So what we did is, first I started looking for a solution in the market. I was like, hey, like, is there something out there that I can actually we can partner with from an investment perspective, that I can be like, hey, you guys should definitely use this because I've tested it out. I've tried it. I know this product in and out. I know the people who've built it. I think this is the right thing for you guys. I went in the market and realized it's really only worth 2 solutions out. And there's like a handful of newer ones, but there are really 2 solutions out there. One of them is Avalara, which is, and then the other one was TaxJar. And a lot of what they did wasn't really aligned with what customers were looking for today. They kind of provide you with the software and they say, hey, Dan, like, here's the software. We'll do 10% of it, but you have to kind of manage the software. You got to set up your accounts. You got to talk to the states. You got to find somebody to register for you. And I'm like, why am I paying you tens of thousands of dollars if you're not doing everything for me? Like, what's the point? And what we've heard from customers was that the customers, I guess the investments at that point we were talking to, they just wanted somebody where they could go like, hey, let us just get there and never have to touch it again. The alternative is going to, third parties like like a CPA, accounting firm, outsourced CFO firms, all that stuff, right? That kind of makes like the natural sense. You have somebody do your bookkeeping. However, a lot of those folks, many of them, they actually don't love the sales tax side. It's not a strong enough business for them, and they'd rather be focused on bookkeeping. As with any business, you want to stay focused on what you're really good at. And so it's kind of like, you look at the market, there's not really anybody that was out there for our investments. And we were like, holy cow, this is a massive need in the space. Let's dig into this a little bit more. Started talking to operators in the space. Avalara just got bought by Vista Equity for $8.4 billion. And they were losing hundreds of millions of dollars on the bottom line. As a private equity business, I was in private equity, you wouldn't buy a business like that unless you thought the industry was absolutely banging and the product was absolutely insane. So that's kind of what was happening. And they were kind of going to go focus up market. They're going to go upstream, focus on the big boys, maybe the Fortune 500 public companies, all that stuff. So, but that still begs the question of a lot of people that need sales tax, compliance support. It's really in that mid market. It's really like the people that don't want to hire somebody in-house. It's people that want to outsource this solution. It's people that want to make sure that they're not spending their resources on this in-house and they're spending it on margin and on revenue. You're not a large enough company where you're going to hire a specific person dedicated to sales tax. You might have a controller, but they don't do sales tax either. They have 100 other things to do. So that's kind of like what happened there. And then TaxJar, the other company, they got acquired by Stripe for a pretty significant sum. And they essentially let go of the entire TaxJar team. So I looked at the market and I'm like, holy cow, they let go of the entire TaxJar team. They're building out their own product called Stripe Tax. It still only does that 10%. It doesn't do that compliance element. There's a massive opportunity here. And that's when I started, me and my co-founder, Edward Lando, he's built a couple e-commerce and fintech companies before. And we were just like, we should absolutely build this thing ourselves. And that's kind of when we put our heads together. And like I said, started talking to operators in the space. And they were like, there is an absolute need for this. The company's direction that we were currently at, they weren't really aligned with what customers' needs were. And customers' needs are, always changing. And so, yeah, that's kind of how it all started. It really started as a way to help our portfolio companies and ended up in a way that companies out there were just falling short. And we just thought we could do it better than the market. So
how did you, like for you, like, I mean, obviously being like an investor is a really good career. Like, how did you make that jump? I'm sure it wasn't easy. Like, I'm doing investing. Now I'm going to start this company. Like, how were you able to go ahead and make that jump?
So let me tell you, I wasn't born thinking I was going to do sales tax my whole life. That wasn't a thing. But I think for me, the reason I made the jump is because number one, I already previous to sales tax, previous to this business, I had my own real estate business before. And while I was doing the other investing roles, a lot of these investing roles, and I did invest in banking more earlier in my days too, I wasn't allowed to invest in public markets. And so what I did is I started investing in real estate, and I started doing like full guts, rehab, started getting into larger and larger real estate deals. But for me, that was interesting because it was a way for me to really invest my money. But what I found from that is eventually I had a team of contractors. I had a team of people to help me out on these projects. And, it was a PM, an agent, contractors, and you kind of name it. And it's interesting because in some way I was a CEO of my own company. And that was my first foray into understanding like, holy cow, I really love this. I really enjoy what I'm doing. I like having control. And yes, there's a lot more risk to it, but I know and I trust myself enough that I will exhaust all possibilities and do all the extensive research that's needed and put in the hard work to make sure that this is successful. For me, that the outcome at the end and the satisfaction was infinitely higher than me making, a consistent salary, working on the same things over and over and over and over. And you're just following a freaking framework to a T. And it's like every deal is different. Every company's different, et cetera, et cetera. But if you look at it, I kind of ask like, what do I want with my life? Number one, like when I have kids, I want to be able to tell my kids that I went for it. I think that's really important to me. It's just being able to talk the talk and also walk the walk. And then number two, I had already kind of started this and I was like, hey, I really want to push hard into it. And so I actually was thinking about joining a company. And that's when I reconnected with my old friend from college, Ed, and he'd started a few companies. He helped start Misfits Markets, Goody, Adam Finance, and all that good stuff. And he's like, hey, just come join me at Pareto. You can do early stage investing for a little bit, but I know you're going to want to start a company, especially given what you've told me. So investing was kind of a way for me to understand what companies were being built and what problem areas there were. And I think it exactly happened the way that he kind of said it, where it was like, you find a problem statement, you're investing in so many companies, you're seeing so much. Now you find a problem statement. The problem was big enough. It's tens of billions of dollars of a problem. And it's an area in which I have a background in. Like my background is computer science business. So software SaaS problem that I always wanted to get into. And that's kind of what allowed me to take that jump a little bit. And I think the last thing is just that having really good support around me, from my partner, from my family, other people in my family have been on the business side. I think that certainly helped because if you don't have that support, I think it's a lot harder because there are low lows and there's obviously high highs and you want to celebrate with people, but you also want to make sure you're with people that can help you stay afloat sometimes and give you that positive reaction. Positive, enforcement when needed. Keep going.
Yeah. So what are the most significant challenges you have faced in your business so far?
Yeah. So I guess like the first thing is, I don't even know if I should be saying this or not, but when we started the business, we started this as two co-founders. We were actually initially planning on bringing in a CEO for the company. And a lot of our early investors that we spoke with, probably knew this. So interestingly enough, when we actually initially went to raise money, we raised, and this was like when the market was, number one, market was getting, this was fall of last year, started raising, market was getting worse. That's when everybody was like, holy cow, like everything's turning. We're not investing anymore for the rest of the year. It's like, holy cow, are you kidding me? This is the time I decided to start a company. And number two, like we didn't have a product. We had no revenue. We didn't have a team. It was just two guys, no software. Like we have like computer science experience, but we can't, like, I mean, if we were going to build an MVP, it's going to take us like a year, And it was like, how the hell are we going to raise money? And we also didn't have a CEO, right? Because we were like, we're going to get a CEO from outside and we're going to have them lead this because sales tax is a very nuanced space. So I think the first difficulty was that not just the times, but it was the fact that we were raising money without a CEO and telling our investors that, don't worry, we are going to get a CEO in place to run this company. So I think that's number one. That was probably the most difficult. And shortly thereafter, like about like a month in, we decided, Ed's like, hey, I think you should really be CEO. I think it's going to make our fundraise a little bit smoother. And that's kind of when I decided to step in. Sometimes I wish I stepped in a little bit earlier, but I'm glad I did when I did, because I got the chance to really develop that conviction myself when I was pitching to the investors. And I think the second challenge is also just, I don't know if I'd call it a challenge now when I challenge now at the specific point, but I know early on it was definitely recruiting, because to build the kind of product that we're building, it's a sales tax product. If you look at any tax product, any compliance product, you have to have the right people and it has to be accurate. But I can't just go out there and like, it's kind of like, I can't just go out there and build a legal tech product. I have no basis for it. Like I don't have any understanding of legal code besides, the general NDAs that I read. But the kind of people that we have on our team, they were my first choice in every single role. And I probably talked to like 300-400 people, give or take. And the difficult part is like, I wouldn't say it was difficult in a different way. It's like convincing somebody to leave their stable job where they're making more money at a stable corporation and they have shares and this company's probably going to IPO soon, to then leave and join your business where you don't have a product, you don't have a team, you don't have revenue. They don't even know how they're getting paid for like maybe in 18 months or like 16 months. A lot of these people have mortgages on their house and you're like, holy cow, like I have to convince these people to join me. And the kind of the cherry on top of this all was, it's a compliance industry, and industry experience, I think, matters to a certain extent. And this is my first time founding a company, like a company in the software space. So then that kind of added the cherry on top. And then the last thing is I'm the youngest person on my team. So it's kind of like, you kind of have this mixture of things where recruiting, I think initially was challenging for me specifically because I just had to you have to have that confidence in yourself and the ability to execute. And once you hire these people, you better damn execute because these people are really relying on you. So I'd say that was a challenge, but I think the good thing was that the company and the mission was there. Everybody was bought into the idea and the vision of the business. There were other competitors that tried to pitch them, other competitors with tens of millions of dollars of funding, and they did not choose to go there. And it was because their vision was not aligned with what customers were looking for. The kind of people that we're hiring, they've been in the industry for 10, 20 years. They've been talking to customers consistently. They've been state auditors. They know exactly what governments are looking for. And the fact that they then chose to join our team, I think that's just a huge testament to just like the mission statement that we have into helping our customers today, where all they have to do is just say yes, that we want this solution, and we'll essentially set it up and get them running from the beginning.
Awesome. So what is the role of artificial intelligence and machine learning in your business?
So I'm glad that you asked this, because I feel like I have this conversation with our leadership team on a pretty regular basis. So number one, I think I just want to add a couple of things. Number one is, in this AI ML world, like we're pretty new to this space. And I think there's kind of dual strategy you can take. You can either be super early and you can integrate this thing into your product really early on, and it can be a core part of your thesis. And there might be issues, there might be mistakes, and you're going to have to kind of sort it out. Second part is like, you're not a first mover, but you're kind of a laggard on the curve, and you're waiting for these technologies to come out. There's pretty robust software out there, and now you're adopting these things into your product set, right? I think we're kind of sitting in the middle somewhere, because for us, the importance is accuracy and making sure our customers are compliant. And the way that we look at AI is really an enhancement for operational efficiencies. And we're actually already starting to develop data lakes to help us in like specific parts of our business. And one specific part is with product mapping, for example. A lot of customers, when they come to us, they sometimes have tens of products or hundreds of products. And we have to essentially go through that list and we have to tell the customer, hey, this product maps to this specific tax code. However, if we have a data lake of hundreds of thousands of products mapping to specific tax codes based on specific product descriptions, we can use that data lake to then drive efficiency on the front end, where instead of having an individual go through it for the customer, you automatically have this software. This software essentially make these initial determinations for these product taxability rules. And all the user then has to do from an admin side is like from our Zamp side, all we have to do is just check it. And it's a lot easier, as we know, to check stuff than it is to create stuff. And I think that's one area in which we're really digging into it. As we get more customers, we're actually increasing our data lake, and that's only going to help us. And I think for us, like, there's other ways we could potentially apply it, but I'd say that's probably the topmost way. That's probably going to help drive efficiencies. And I think for us, like, it's also such a big value add for customers, this product taxability piece, because right now, like, when a customer needs this product taxability element, I'm glad that we provide it, but other companies, like the competitors out there in the market, they either don't provide it, they charge you tens of thousands of dollars for this thing or thousands of dollars for this thing, or you have to go to a third party separately from that software and go ask somebody to do this for you on a regular basis. So if you're bringing in a new product, if you're consistently, if you're kind of like a marketplace platform where you're constantly putting on new products, it becomes annoying to have to constantly go to somebody and say, hey, can you help me out with this? Hey, can you help me out with this? And now they're charging you by like the hundreds or thousands. And so just having us do it in-house plus adding that efficiency with AI is really going to help drive that. And you know what else is funny is you mentioned AI. Someone asked me, he's like, do you use AI for your LinkedIn posts? And I'm like, no, I freaking write those myself. It takes time, but like I write them myself. A lot of the AI copy stuff is pretty garbage in my opinion. It's like, I think a lot of the copy out there is like, you can kind of tell if it's written by AI versus not. And I think a lot of people on Twitter, I guess like I personally can tell when someone on Twitter wrote it from AI because I've tested it out myself. It's not to say that I haven't, but anyways.
That makes sense. So as of right now, what is your top business priority in the next 3 to 6 months?
Grow. Go to market. That's super key. So our value proposition. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I mean, I guess like what specifically are you guys really focused on right now?
Yeah, I'd say it's a couple of things, right? At the end of the day, like we're an early stage company, and I think we're in this position where we found product market fit. We win. I mean, our value proposition with our customers and the people we engage with really resonates. The team and the expertise that we have on our side also really resonates with people because they're trusting you with their data, they're trusting you with their money, and you need to have people on your team that they can really trust in the long term. And then the last thing is for us, like once we've kind of found that, it's like, how do we replicate it even harder? And so for us, the top priority is, it sounds like really broad, but it's just, how do we get in front of more people? How do we get in front of more customers? Because we know every customer at a certain point has a specific problem. Every e-commerce business, every digital services company, every SaaS company, every online seller that we can currently cater to selling into the United States has this problem. Maybe not just when they start the company, but once they start hitting the $500K, $1 million revenue mark, all the way to the hundreds of millions, they have this problem. And what we're trying to do is just figure out how else we can get in front of customers. So starting to talk to partners across various different verticals, increasing that partner pool, starting to just refine our outreach approach to potential customers, getting intros to potential customers, activating our investors. We're just trying to push pavement to the ground to push as hard as we can to be able to get in front of them, because we know that when we get in front of them, it's just a matter of saying, asking them what their pain points are. And we just say like, that's exactly what we do. And they're like, holy shit, like, when can we sign up? And I think that's in the beginning, I just think that's such a great feeling and great place to be at, where your customers are really resonating with exactly what you're saying. And when they're like, hey, these are my 5 problems. Oh, this is how we solve problem 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. They're like, just do this. So yeah, I get it, just getting in front of more customers. But a lot of that brand recognition is just going to take time. And so even doing things like this, for me, like every opportunity, I really take it as like a blessing. And it's just like, I appreciate you kind of asking me out here, because anything that we can do to get in front of more people or just start this conversation around us is just going to help.
So, any single piece of advice you wish you had known before you started your business?
Yeah, I think a lot. It's funny, like I was an investor, and investors like give advice of like, oh, do this or oh, do that, and it's like, I look back at myself, I'm like, this is like the most high level generic shit that I could have told anybody. Like it doesn't even fly. I think a couple of things, right? And this is kind of advice that you'd probably get from any entrepreneur. I think Number one is it's going to be really to get to where you want to be. You can't lose sight of where you want to go. There's going to be ups and there's going to be downs, but you can't get stuck in the downs, and you have to celebrate the wins, because if you just keep thinking like more to get there, first of all, you're never going to enjoy the journey. And I think the journey is really important. One of my COO, his name is Cleet Works. He does a great job on our company calls, on our all hands calls, just telling people to enjoy the journey. Every milestone that we hit, whether as little as it is or as big as it is, it's like a moment of celebration. And I think that's really important, that I kind of wish that I had implemented in myself early on. Second thing is, and you might hear this from founders too, is contractors may say one thing and then do another thing. And you really have to vet out your contractors, or like who you actually work with from an agency side. And I think like it sounds obvious, but talk to as many people as possible. You might have a time crunch. You might be working 15 hours a day, but spend another 2 hours finding the right contractors, because the good ones are really amazing. The ones that are not great are really just going to be a time suck. And it's not worth working with anything, less than excellent. Like you should not demand anything less than excellent from your people. And I think just the last thing is, for the people that are out there that, want to take the leap into entrepreneurship, I would just say, like, if you don't have like the response, I mean, even if you do, but even if you don't have the responsibility of like kids, other people to support yet, or just different life responsibilities that come up as you get older, I would just say, hey, take the leap. This is kind of the time to do it, because the worst thing that's going to happen if you fail is you're just going to learn a shit ton. And like for example, I've sat and I've done some product work before. Like I've done now marketing work. I've done like sales stuff. I'm doing partnership stuff, everything except like indirect engineering coding. I've pretty much done in an organization now. Like I've gotten leverage for a lot of it. So I'd say like take the leap. And then number two, if you are going to take the leap, I highly recommend, instead of hiring somebody first to do those roles and without you doing it, I would suggest you do it first. And then it really allows you to figure out what you're really looking for and where your capabilities are limited and where you might need to be augmented.
So if somebody watching this wanted to reach out to you, do you mind sharing the best way to get in contact with you or your website?
Yeah, absolutely. So our website is zamp.com, ZAMP.com. And you can always reach me at rohit@zamp.com as well. That's my direct email. And interestingly enough, unlike other people in our space, you can also call us. If this is specifically related to Zamp, you can always call us at 1-866-438-9267. But if you just want to jam on go-to-market things, or looking to get investor funding or any of that sort of things, happy to kind of jam on pretty much anything in the e-commerce and SaaS space. At the end of the day, like we're all in this together, and just want to help make the place seem a little bit less scary. So,
Rohit, thank you so much for your time. We're rooting for you. And hopefully, Zamp keeps growing at this pace and even more so.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Elaine. I appreciate you guys, and thanks for taking the time. Thanks for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you,
It's
man.
great.
All right,
Thanks,
thanks.
guys.
Bye.
Bye.